What's up, friends of YouTube? Derek Van Diest here with Zaandam Music. In today's episode, we're going to get started with Studio One. I'm going to show you exactly how I start my beats. I'm going to show you how I get organized. I'm going to show you the instruments that I usually start my beats with. I'm going to show you how I arrange my beats. I'm going to show you what the mixer looks like when I start my projects. And I'm also going to throw in an example at the end. So let's dive right in. So starting off, this is how I begin my projects. This is what the main screen looks like. So on the left here, you'll see I have my instruments. This is where the main project screen is. And on the right here, you'll see I have a scratch pad. So I trigger it with this button up here. And the scratch pad, I have a section for the intro, verse, breakdown, another verse, outro, and I can add more as I need to. So I have several scratch pads, and I have one usually for each of these sections. Now, I have this is a project for a rap or a trap type beat. So I'll have an intro, I'll have a hook, a verse, a breakdown, and an outro. So I just have these as templates. So if I'm working on a hook, I'll just open up the hook scratch pad. And you know, once I'm messing around with ideas here on the scratch pad and I find something I like, I can put it into the hook section. And I can move these around, switch them up, you know, make them smaller, bigger, however I need to. And this is one way I like to keep organized in my projects. So I find that organization is key. And I try to be as organized as possible. So I like to stay organized using colors. And here I have a color for each of the different sections. For the instruments, I like to color code everything. And I usually have the same colors for all my projects. And I do this so that I can associate the color to the instrument. So for example, my bass sounds. For all my projects, I have an 808. And I also have a normal synthesizer bass. And I don't have to use them both. This is just a template. So for the 808, I always start off with Maschine because I use Maschine Studio here. And I use Instance of Contact with the 808 Cooking Up preset for the Beat House Kids Trap Sinatra. And that's my favorite 808, so I usually begin a project with that one. But, you know, later on I'll switch it up if I need to and whatnot. So for the other bass, I have a sub boom bass from Rob Pappin, and I'll play around with the presets to find something I like. And these are purple sounds. I always use purple sounds, the darker color purple colors. I use dark purple for the 808 and a lighter purple for the bass. Also, another way I like to stay organized is by using pack folders, so I can just easily open and close all the folders and stay more organized within the project. So for the drums, I like to use brown. I'll use different shades of brown. I'll start with dark brown for the kicks, and I like to start with an 808 kick and a kick, a normal one. But I don't necessarily use them both. And I can also add another kick if I want to. I just have a snare section and a clap section. I can add more snares, more claps, however I feel like. I have a hi-hat, open hat, and a perk, just to start off. For all of them, all my drum sounds, I use sample one, and I'll have a sample pack. For example, Lil Skies. I just love the Lil Skies sample pack, so I'm using that for all of my sounds. Right from the start. So here I have a Lil Skies kick. For the other kick, I'll have a Lil Skies kick. You know, for the snare, a Lil Skies snare. You know, you get the idea. All of them have the sample one with a preset for the first one. Now, the reason I do this is because it's so easy to flip through the different samples. So if I'm working on a project and I don't like the way this kick sounds, I can just hit next and try a different kick. I just keep hitting next and until I find the kick that I like. And that goes for all the drum sounds. Alright, for instruments, I only have a piano, which I use from Keyscape. And I like to use the LA Custom C7 wash. This is my favorite piano sound, so I like to start my projects with that one. Alright, for the pads, I have a pads folder here with an Omnisphere, and I have nothing in particular. I just have, from the pads and strings section, I just pick random. So I try to find a random pad sound. Sometimes I'll bring in X-Band 2 and try to play around with some pad sounds there. Let's see. After that, I'll have effects, and right now the only effect I have is my beat tag, which is in a sample 1. And I always use my beat tag in all my projects, so I just have it ready to use. And then last, I'll have a random instance here of Maschine 2, just ready for me to use if I ever need to program some pads here on the Maschine Studio. I have it ready to go. Alright, so I already explained the instruments and the arrangement, so now I'll talk about the mixer. And this is what my mixer looks like for every beat, whenever I start a beat. So at the far left, we have the microphone, and I never use this. I only use this if I were to rap on my beats, or if I had somebody in the studio rapping to one of my beats. These are all the mic settings. So I have an auto tune ready to go. Okay, so for the 808, I have nothing on it, so as you can see here in the inserts, I don't have any effects on it or the sends, because I'll add them as I progress through the beat. Up here, you'll see this is where the bus channel routing is. As you can see, the purple ones for the bass, I have them routed to the bass bus channel. And down here, you'll see another bass insert, and this is for the VCA channel. So let me go to the VCA real quick. That's the green one here. All these green ones are the VCA channels. So we have one for the bus, one for the bass, one for drums, one for instruments, one for pads, one for effects, and one for reverb. And what this does is it controls the volume for that channel. So going back. Also, I want to explain the bus channel. So bass bus channel means that it's routed to this red bus channel here. And I'll get into that later. So up next, we have the kick sounds. They're all routed to the drum bus channel, and they're all on the drum VCA. I already explained the color coding, and I have nothing, no inserts, no effects, nothing on it. This is just a template. So up next, we have the keyscape. It's routed to the instruments, nothing on it. For the pads, nothing on it, routed to the pads bus channel and VCA. For the effects, same deal. We have the effects channel, the effects bus channel as well, nothing on it. And Maschine, I have nothing on it, but I have it on the main channel, because I don't know what I'm going to be using on it. So it's not routed to anything. Now, moving on to the effects. So I always have a plate reverb, and I always use the same one, which is the Valhalla Vintage Verb drum plate. For the hall reverb, I always use the Valhalla Vintage Verb, very nice hall setting. And for the room reverb, I always use Altiverb 7, and I'll pull it up here, SARM West Studios preset. And I like to color code these like a turquoise light blue. For the effects, I use Panman, which is from Soundtoys, and I have it on default, just ready to be messed with. And same deal with the Echo Boy that I have here. This is for my delays. I have it ready to go for whatever delay sound I need to have. Moving on to the bus channels. So for the bus channels, I have the bass channel with a little bit of room reverb. Just a tiny bit. And that's all I have on it for now, but usually I like to turn it into mono by adding an imager. For the drum bus channel, I have a little bit of room and a little bit of plate reverb as well. For the instrument bus channel, I have quite a bit of reverb for the room. For the pads, I use room reverb and a lot of hall reverb on it. For the effects, I like to keep it about the same as the instrument for the reverb. And that's all I do for the bus channels when I start my projects. But I add effects as the project continues. So for the filter and the filter bypass, I reserve these channels for my automation. So I have nothing on it until I'm ready to automate something. And for the beginners, the filter is for whatever I want the effect to affect. And for the filter bypass is for the instruments that I don't want the filter to affect. So whatever, let's say I'm using a tape stop and I don't want the drums to be affected by that, I will route the drums to the filter bypass. And the way I do that is by changing this here to filter bypass. Alright. Now the mix bus I reserve for mastering, but the thing is I never master here on Studio One. I always export to Ozone 8 and I do my mastering on there. But this is reserved for any type of mix effects that I need to affect everything with. Alright, and for the master channel, the one on the far right, I always use an Ozone 8 equalizer with a brick wall at 30 Hertz and another brick wall at 18, I just moved it, but I usually have it at 18 kilohertz. And they're brick walls so that no frequency goes past it or below it. Then I have a Hornet song key so that I can see what beat I'm in, like what key I'm in for the beat. So this bottom one will tell me the entire beat, so it'll be in like D minor for example, and the top part will tell me what key it is in that section that it's currently playing. And then the last one is Sample Grabber, which is for the Flux Analyzer, which is a spectrum analyzer, and I use that on a different screen. Okay, so that's everything for the mixer. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and do a small example for you guys so you can see how I go about starting a beat. So I'll turn on everything back to the way I start with. Alright, so everything's opened up. I like to work in tiny, so everything's easy to see. And I'm gonna start by going into my browse folder. And I like to use Wave Supply for their MIDI files. So Wave Supply is a great place to get samples. I'm going to be using Wave Supply, eTrau, Trifecta, Stems, and MIDI samples. So the way I do this is I go one by one and try to find one that I like. So let's hear the first one to hear what it sounds like. So that's a nice soft one, but I'm going to keep going. Let's hear this one. That's pretty cool. I'm kind of looking for one with piano keys though. So I'm going to quickly locate one that has piano MIDI. I don't know, let's see, piano MIDI. And here we go. This one has two pianos and a flute. Let's keep going though, because I want other sounds as well. So I don't want to spend too much time with it, so whatever, let's use this one. So this one has a keys MIDI. Let's hear what it sounds like, the full project. Okay, so that sounds really cool. I like that one. So this folder is called Mentions, and it's telling me it's in 148 BPM, but my project's in 140. So it actually doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be exactly 148. And it's better that it doesn't match it because, you know, I don't want to copy them. I don't want my beat to sound exactly like this sound that you just heard. So I'm going to switch it up. And the way I do that is with the MIDI files. So the keys MIDI, I'm gonna click and I'm gonna drag into the scratch pad under the keyscape row. So I'm gonna zoom in here so you can see it better. Let's go to small actually, or normal. All right, so if I double click on that, you can see here are the MIDI files. And it looks like it's a chord progression. I can already tell by the way the MIDI looks. So let's hear what it sounds like with the piano that I start my beats with. I'm sorry about that crackling sound. So I apologize about that crackling sound. It's due to my recording program. So normally I wouldn't have that issue. So please try to bear with it. Okay, so for the example purpose, I don't want to spend too much time, so we'll use this chord progression. But you know, I like to adjust it. I'll make changes to it, make sections shorter, add stuff to it, whatnot, because I don't like it to be exactly the same. I don't like copying, you know. I don't like copying straight out. So all right, we have a nice chord progression going. So the next thing I'll do is I'll copy that same MIDI file and I'll put it down in the pads section. And let's hear what that sounds like together. And at the same time, I'm going to play around with the levels to get them just right in the mixer. Okay, so the CPU is really bad. It's crackling like crazy. So in order to combat that, I'm going to take it off the channel, the bus channel. So let's take it off the bus channel and see if that improved it. Alright, so it didn't improve the crackling, but I know how to fix the issue. So what I do is I will bounce it to wave. So I'll grab this file and bounce it by hitting Control B on my keyboard. And I'm going to do that for both of them. So I'll do that for the pad sound, and I'm also going to do that for the keyscape sound. And working with wave files it gives you more options than you would have with MIDI. And I'm going to show you an example of that as soon as this is ready. So alright, first thing I like to do is go into that sample, and I'm going to hit Alt plus on my keyboard to raise the volume up. And I want it to be high enough so that it doesn't clip, so it doesn't go after 0, but I also want it to be pretty loud. So that looks like a good level for me. And I'm going to go to the other one and do the same process, Alt plus, and bring up the volume. So now I'm going to open up the mixer and play around with the levels again, try to get it just right. Let me close this up here. Okay, so we can see it better. I'm going to put them back on the bus channels. There's still a little bit of crackling, but it's not so bad. So here's a cool trick that I like to do, and I'm going to show you guys right now. So I'm going to make this completely unique. I mean, it's already unique because I'm using a different piano than they used, but check this out. I'm going to grab both addictive keys, not addictive keys, keyscape and omnisphere. And check this out. So I'm going to try to highlight both of them at the same time. I guess to highlight them both, you have to hit shift. I'm going to right click. Let's see if I can right click here. All right. And I'm going to transpose it. I usually like to transpose it down 6. And then I do the same by tuning up 6 to level it out, I guess. I don't really know my reason behind it. I just know this is what I like to do. So I'll bring it down 6, tune it up 6, and usually that sounds good. So let's hear what that sounds like. So I'm kind of liking that vibe. It's more of a mellow, kind of dark vibe. But I'm going to try something crazy here. Not really crazy, but something else to mess around with the wave file. I'm going to go ahead and select both of them, and I'm going to hit Control R to reverse it. Let's hear what the reverse sounds like. Alright, I'm going to undo that because I just thought of an idea. So I don't want to reverse the pad. I'm only going to reverse the piano. So let's go ahead and reverse the piano one more time. Control R. And actually I messed up here. I'm going to undo. Before I do that, I'm going to duplicate it by hitting D on the keyboard so that I have 2 files. And check this out, guys. This is why I use macros. This is the macro section up here that I like to use. I have a name section. So for this here, addictive keys, I don't know what that means. So I'm going to click name, patterns, and just name it pattern 1. And it's that easy. I don't have to type anything. For this one, I'm going to name it pattern 2. And there I have 2 different patterns. So I always use this macro here. It's really useful. I also like using the audio up and down macro for the volume up and down, 3 decibels. But all right, here we go. So I have 2 patterns now. These are the same pattern right now, but pattern 1 I want to be normal and pattern 2 I want to be reversed. So Control R, I have it reversed now. Next thing I do is I'm gonna move it to a new channel here. So 1 second. Put it tiny. So I'm gonna move this down here. And then I'm gonna grab pattern 2, move it up here so they're next to each other, and I'm gonna color it red. I'm gonna drop it in the instruments pack folder. Then we'll just leave it at pattern 2 for now, but usually I'll rename it and all that. Let's go back to normal. So pattern 2 is the reverse and pattern 1 is the normal. So let's hear what they sound like together. I'm also going to play around with the levels. I'm gonna move this channel next to the piano. So that sounds pretty cool when the reverse plays into the actual piano. Let's turn on the pad. So I don't like the way the pad sounds. So normally, I'm going to mute it for now, but normally I'm going to go back into the pad. You know, I'm going to erase this WAV file, go back into the MIDI and change the pad sound. But for the purpose of this example, I don't want to waste too much time, so let's move on straight up to the 808. Okay, so 808, we're up here. So let's find an 808 pattern that sounds cool with this. But you know what? Even before the 808, let's start with the hi-hat and snare, because the hi-hat and snare help a lot getting the vibe of the beat. So I'm going to program it in myself just to be quick on this. I'm going to move kind of fast. So I'm going to program a standard trap. Sorry, it's kind of loud. Let me go into the mix. I'm going to drop the snare sound. I'm going to monitor the snare so I can adjust the level. And I want to keep it at -12. That's a good level. Great, so let's move on to the MIDI and let's program the correct MIDI. And I'm going to do this pretty quick so that I don't waste too much time. All right, one more. And this is a standard clap progression here for trap music. So let's get that going. Whoops, I put it in the wrong section. Hold on, what did I do here? There, now it should be good. It doesn't sound right to me, but okay, let's put in the, let's turn on the metronome. Okay, it is right. Okay, so next up I'm gonna put in the hi-hats. So let's see, what can I do here? Try to figure this out. I'm just gonna put it in myself. So I'm just gonna do a random hi-hat here. I'm gonna turn down the level, so monitor. And I like to keep it at about -24, maybe a little bit higher. And let's just program a standard hi-hat pattern. So I'm working kind of fast so that I don't waste too much time. All right, and I'll duplicate this whole thing. Awesome, let's hear what that sounds like. Let's turn off the metronome. And I want the hi-hats to be faster, so I'm gonna duplicate that. And double time it. Okay, we'll leave it at that for now. Just gonna remove this tail end. And we have an 8-bar progression here that we're working on. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that pattern to the clap. Actually, I don't want it to be a snare. Let's adjust the clap. So, okay, let me get into organization again. As you can see, I can work fast now because I'm prepared. I have the presets already in place. I don't have to go around messing around with looking for a clap sound, looking for a hi-hat sound. I can just dive right in and get to work. So as you can tell, I already have something going on. I can, you know, obviously I'm gonna make the hi-hat pattern more complex than this. And the snare, you know, I'm gonna add a snare to this clap. So let's hear what it sounds like. Okay, so I want the snare in this section. And I want it here too. And I'll duplicate that. Awesome. So as you can see, we already have a beat developing there. For the kick, you know, I can just program something in, make the kick sound cool. But before the kick, I like to work on the 808. So let's go back to the 808 because I got sidetracked. So next step is let's figure out what key the beat is in. So I'm gonna go back into the mix. I'm gonna go into the master, open up Hornet, reset, and I'm gonna play it through to find out what key we're in. So I rely on this a lot, but sometimes it's not very accurate. Let's leave it open for a little while. So it's saying we're in D major, so we're gonna have to program everything in D major. So let's program the 808 in D major. So going back in, I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna move it from C to D. I'm going to switch it from chromatic to major, and then I'm going to click this here, this check mark. That's going to show me what keys are within the D major scale. Let's start with D. So let's move on to D. Okay, so for some reason it's only coming out of the right side of my headphones. So let me figure out why that's happening. So for some reason it's only going out one side. I'm going to open up the instrument, find out what's going on. I'm going to open up contact. Come on, contact. There it is. So for some reason, this panned all the way to the left. I don't know why. Close that out. Okay, that fixed the problem. Let's go ahead and lower that. Sorry about that volume. And for the 808, I like to keep it at -12. So that D is not hitting in key. It doesn't sound like it's hitting in key. So I'm going to raise it up 2 octaves. And it is in key. So let's play around with the sounds here, see which key sounds best at the start. Okay, I like this one. So I'm going to play around with this note and see what it sounds like. Okay, let's do this one next. I don't know, let's try this key. So I'm just experimenting, playing with different ideas. That's why we're using the scratch pad. Okay, so I like how that sounded here. I tried to be unique by moving it there, but let's put it quantized. So Let's hear what that sounds like. So I'm just playing around with it, trying to get a cool little pattern going. So this is trial and error. So I think this is the pattern that we're looking for. I think I want this to be lower. Let's try what that sounds like. Okay, that's the sound. Actually, it's down here. There we go. And then I'm gonna copy this here, I think. And I'm gonna remove this. Cut this down. So I apologize that I'm not explaining exactly what I'm saying, because it takes quite a bit of effort to, you know, get a pattern together and talk about it at the same time. So I'm gonna do my best here. Let's bring this down to the proper level now by dropping it 2 octaves. And let's hear what that sounds like. So this key here I don't like. So something's up with this one here. This note is not working out. So, you know, it's trial and error, but let me just remove it so that I can explain the kick now. All right, that'll do for now. So for the kick, I wanted to match the 808, so I'm going to copy the 808, bring it down to kick. Double click on kick. I'm going to move all the notes up to C, and it's pretty loud, so I'm going to monitor. They find out here, monitor the kick, go into the mix, and I'm going to bring it down. So I'm going to bring it to, I don't want to monitor that, to a -6. I like to keep the kick at -6. Let's hear what that sounds like. Let me go back to the 808 kick. So what I want to do is put all of them on C3. So I will grab all the MIDI notes, bring them up and down until they all match C3. And that's it. The kick is ready. Sometimes I like to add things. So I do that by, slicing. Grab the slice tool. Put it here. So I think that's where the cuts need to be. You know, for sections I don't want a kick to be in, I just remove it. For sections I want to add a kick, I just add one. sometimes I click the wrong key. It's 2 that I'm looking for. The shortcut for the cut tool, the slice tool, is 2. And then the shortcut for the arrow tool is 1. So that's the pattern there for the drums. So as you can see, guys, I mean, I'm already making a whole beat here, but this is just an example. So I have other patterns here I can add. For example, Lounge Lizard Roads. You know, I can add another keyscape, add a top line melody to it. And it's pretty much already set for me here because I have a pack with the MIDI files. So that's one tip for you guys. Use MIDI files from packs because you can mess around with it like I did. You know, reverse the sound, transpose it, whatever you need to make it sound completely different. See, here's the original sound one more time. So I think this is the piano here that I used. And now check out the one that I made. So as you can see, it sounds completely different, and it's very simple to do. I just showed you. So yeah, that's an example there for you. That's how I start all my beats. Now that I have this scratch pad ready, if I want this to be the hook, I just select everything and I'll bring it into the hook section. That's it. That's simple. I can program the hook, take things out, add things to it, whatever I want to. Before I do that though, I usually like to name everything, title everything like I showed you earlier. So this 808, I'll click on it, name pattern 1, you know, 808, name pattern 1. So if I have a different pattern, let's say I want to program another snare, I'll duplicate it, change whatever MIDI I have to change. Let's say, I don't know, for whatever reason, I want to take that one out and this one out. So it's a completely different pattern. So I'll name the first one pattern 1, second one pattern 2. And I'll do that so I can stay organized. And I think that's about everything I wanted to tell you guys. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you learned something here. Check out some of my beats at my website, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.